Okay, so I've been in the sector for pretty much my whole career, so 20 odd years now. The joke version I give is gamekeeper working in facilities, poacher working in the supply chain, and now militia, I suppose, working for UK Active. And current role of UK Active, I'm the Director of Membership and Sector Development, so ultimately that is looking at how we work with our member base, which is 4,500 strong, ranging behind from large brands involved in sport and physical activity through private sector multi-chain operators, the public sector, wider activity, suppliers, and independent businesses as well. So quite a broad church. I think as the sectors came through the pandemic, what's became apparent, whether this is working with government or stakeholders or importantly the end user, is the sector's ability to be able to articulate that physical activity and health is of benefit to living happier, healthier, better quality of life. Where there's, rather than the challenge, where the opportunity is that there's about 30% of the population are active, about 15% of those, so half of that 30%, use our members' facilities, our members' services, and it's looking at how can we begin to shift that dial. Fundamentally, it's making sure that we meet the people where they are. So it's looking at, rather than making assumptions as to how do we work with a particular demography, socioeconomic group, geographical region, it's understanding what are the true barriers, at what point can we make interventions, and then we can begin to move the dial, working with our members. And that's the important side of things, is that activity is very, very easy to do, because you start walking and moving a little bit more, but it's that understanding of the barriers and how we can begin to shift that dial is quite a key thing. And that's how, as a sector, we've evolved really through the pandemic, and that's where the opportunity is moving forward. The pandemic is a really sort of pertinent issue to show where a sector that was especially hard done by, and it was the first to close, the last to open. But what's been impressive over that period of time is how do we unite the member base, irrespective of the business model, the size and scale, around a common purpose, which ultimately is how can we elevate the opinion of the sector. Key example of how we've done that is we felt, unjustifiably so, that pubs opening before gyms back in 2020 was a travesty, but it was taking responsibility and accountability as to how do we change that, working with chief medical officers, working with SAGE officials to show them the rigour and the safety of the sector, but importantly the ongoing recording of how our sector was performing in comparison to case rates, general population. It's interesting because we've got a paper coming out in the next couple of weeks around this as well. We've collected 250 million customer visits. Now, harvesting that sort of level of information is as a sum of members' willingness, partners' willingness to actually provide that data, to pool the data around the common cause, which is provide a safe and essential service that has lots of benefits of improving people's health, aware of a public health crisis, but showing how that collective goal can really shift the dial on avoiding lockdowns, avoiding tier systems as we move forward, and making sure that the wider profile of physical activity, of fitness, of leisure is much, much higher. There is the one in our eyes, which is National Fitness Day, that runs every year. And where we saw that the buying and the growth of that, looking at 22 million people active on a particular day. Importantly, how the social media reach has increased year on year on year, the brands that get behind it, with it ultimately being a relatively organic campaign that started with Energy Fitness and was handed over to UK Active as the custodian of it, and it's grown and grown and grown year on year on year. However, that's a day. You want National Fitness to run all year round, and that's where I'm not sure if you saw, we've announced a partnership with ITM Productions, looking at how can we further amplify the message, because ultimately it's about opening the doors, dispelling some of the misconceptions, getting people moving a little bit more, and that's where we think is over the last 6-7 years it's been running with UK Active. It's grown and grown and grown and grown. but that's with its members and our partners. That's not UK Active. UK Active is the royal we. It's the sum of its parts.